Hey everybody, my name is Ryan Floyd. I'm Managing Director at Storm Ventures, and this is my video series, AskAVC. Welcome back to everyone that's seen the videos before, and welcome to everyone that's new. We're going to try something a little bit new today, and I've brought along a guest with me to talk B2B SaaS and some of the challenges you have in building your companies. With me is Dominique Levin. She's founder and co-CEO of Winning by Design, a consulting group that we work with very, very closely here at Storm. They do an amazing job of helping companies sort through their go-to-market strategy, sales strategy, putting together a marketing plan, and really thinking about how to get to that next level. And she's going to join me today to talk about leads. I hear from so many entrepreneurs, Ryan, I need more leads. How do I get more leads? And I get it. It's the fuel of your business. You need more leads to generate sales. So Dominique is an expert in leads. So tell me, Dominique, what advice would you give me how to get more leads?
Well, Ryan, first thing is, I think it's the wrong question. I'm sorry, it's not really about leads. You know, it's really about pipeline and opportunities and deals and sales that I'm trying to create for my business. And what's the difference? Imagine a company that takes 100 leads and converts it into one deal. Another company might take 20 leads and convert it into one deal. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal to marketing, but it's a huge deal to sales. Imagine.
Right.
It's a difference between having to staff for calling 100 people, right, to create one deal, or having to staff actual people time, people cost to convert 10 or 20 leads into one deal. So it's not just leads. I've seen too many companies where marketing hits their goal and says, oh, we have so many leads, wonderful. And sales is missing. Sales is missing their numbers, right? So obviously,
so it's all about opportunities.
Opportunities and pipeline.
And let's define some terms. Make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. When we talk about an opportunity, we're talking about a sales opportunity. When we talk about a lead, we're talking about top of the marketing funnel before they convert into a sales opportunity.
Right, so a lead is a hypothetical person, right, that looks on paper like a good fit for your solution, but no guarantee that this person will actually engage into a conversation with you about a potential deal, right? An opportunity is someone who basically you've had a conversation with and they've agreed to start exploring if a partnership, potential, sale of your product would be a right fit for them.
Right, so it's not about leads, it's about opportunities. So what are like the common mistakes people make then in terms of trying to think about all of these leads? Like what are the ways to think about an opportunity? When you meet with all these companies, what are some things, like some just quick pieces of advice you can give to people to really think more about how to generate more of that, opportunity focus?
Right. So first of all, the role of marketing is not to sell. The role of marketing really is just to start the conversation, right? So that's sort of one. Second, the common mistake is that, especially with a small team, marketing is trying to do too many things. It's really easy for marketing to check all the boxes and to do 100 different things to try and generate leads and to accomplish absolutely nothing. So the key to lead generation, is to figure out what works and really double down on that. And what works can be very different depending on where you are as a company and what kind of market you're operating in.
Well, so let's take a step back. So that's good. So double down on what works. Let's come back to that in a minute. Let's take a step back because sometimes I hear from founders, I don't have any leads. We're like, where do I start? Like I've got this, product. I got this idea. Like where do I begin? Like how do I think about positioning this to people and just begin to attract people to what I'm doing? How would I think about that?
Right. So first of all, again, as I said, it depends on where you are as an organization. So there's some rule of thumbs. There's two fundamentally different situations you can find yourself in.
Okay.
One is, I'm in a very mature market.
Mature market, okay.
So if I'm in a mature market, it means that other people are already selling into that market.
Right.
So there's an existing demand stream out there.
Right, so the problem is clear. I know what it is.
People are probably searching on Google for this thing, right? Oh, I need a new router. Oh, I need a new firewall, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, right.
So in that case, if you think about it, the nature of your lead problem is, how do I take that existing lead stream that is currently going to my competitors and bend it into my direction, right? So that's scenario one. So in that case, you're going to probably rely heavily on things like digital marketing, right? People are online, they're searching. I'm going to do search engine optimization. I'm going to maybe do some paid search. I'm going to do online content, social, to try and tell people, hey, new kid in town, we have a better, faster thing that you're looking for.
Right, okay.
Scenario two would be, I'm a brand new market.
Brand new market.
So think about how different that is, right? So if I am in a brand new market and I've just invented, think about the early days of marketing automation.
Right, great example.
Nobody had ever heard of that.
What is that?
So early days of Marketo.
Right.
Nobody's looking for marketing automation. They don't even know what it means, right? So then investing in paid search against the marketing automation term would be a huge mistake. So instead, I have to try and find marketers, in this case, where they're hanging out. So I might do thought leadership by speaking at large conferences focused at chief marketing officers. Or I might try and get some of the industry publications to write about me and sort of find people where they're at. So that's a fundamentally sort of different lead gen strategy.
Before we started recording, we were talking about that great example of the dancing man. You should tell that story. I think it's a great, and when you think about a new market and convincing people how to think about it, it's a great analogy to have.
And I think it's actually universal. What we're talking about here is like what kind of messaging resonates, right? So we now talked about what channels should I use, right? Should I speak at conferences and organize events, or should I invest in online ads, right? Fundamentally different marketing strategies. One is good for existing markets, one is good for new markets.
Right.
But what is my message, right? How I convince people to click on my thing or to come to my event. And universally, people won't believe a word you're saying, right? So
They won't?
I'm sorry to break it to you, Ryan, but as a vendor, you are not credible. They know that you're trying to sell something, right? So people are not following you. And there's a great video you can watch online, lessons about how to create a movement from a dancing guy at a festival, right? So the guy starts dancing in his underwear, I believe, at a festival, and he's a lone nut dancing at a festival.
It's very fun. We'll make sure we put a link to it in the in the notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So nobody wants to follow him initially, but there's one person, for whatever reason, decides to start dancing with him, right? So this is what we call the first follower. In your case, or this would be your customers, right? So the first person might be your friend that you've somehow convinced, right? Your acquaintance that you've convinced to buy from you. So this is your first customer, your first follower. And soon you'll see in the video that all the other festival goers now get into it like, ooh, this is the cool thing.
Right.
And soon enough, you'll be left alone and behind if you're not dancing with this group, right? So the first follower turns the lone nut, right, into a genius. And this is your customer. So universally, if you want to try and get people to come to your event, to click on your ad, it's customer stories that will make them do that, right? Like people will want to hear about others like them who have similar problems, and that is what will convince them to at least start a conversation with you.
So in a new market, I'm going to try to basically evangelize what I'm doing and really to tell my story, to get other people to come along with me in this movement. But I think an interesting dynamic is it wasn't just the dancing man, it was all the other people that sort of did the convincing, so to speak, right?
Exactly right.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you get your customers to tell your story? I mean, if they don't believe me, then they have to believe my customers or whoever I'm working with, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So the customers often have a benefit to, it's about them, right? It's really about making the customer the hero of the story. And in fact, I would recommend you, if you're going to use a customer story, again, either put a customer on stage at an event or publish a customer story online, make sure your customer never mentions your name. As soon as they mention your name or your product name, it becomes a pitch.
Yeah, right.
As opposed to
loss of all credibility.
Loss of all credibility. Yeah. It's a story about me. Let's go back to that Marketo example. I'm the CMO, in an organization trying to nurture my leads and to take my leads and turn more of my leads into deals. And I was the pioneer that took a bet on a new solution that accomplished that, right? And to set me apart in the industry from all my competitors. So it's really a story about me, the problem that I was having. Maybe not enough of my leads were turning into anything, and me finding a creative new way to solve that. So you can talk about the functionality of your product there, right? You can say, I, the CMO, found this thing that we now call lead nurturing, and guess what it did? It took more of my leads and turned them into more deals. But I'm not going to say, Marketo helped me turn my leads into deals.
Well,
right?
what's
it
more,
was me, the CMO.
I mean, in that example too, like no one's going to really know what marketing automation is anyway.
I know.
It's almost because if your customer tells the story, they're telling the problem, right? They're telling what the problem is, and that's where you'll find resonance.
Right.
Like another thing we've talked about in the past, and I know as a strategy you guys use all the time, is to really look for lookalikes, right? So what does a lookalike mean? I mean, for someone that's trying to kind of build up, again, going back to how you create an opportunity and really thinking about better conversion, what is a lookalike? How do you sort of think about that?
So a lookalike is someone who is similar to me, and there's two things. We talk about
Who's me?
fit.
Me as the
buyer, right? The
customer.
prospective customer.
Right.
So you're looking for, so I have already a number of customers. Now I'm going to find more customers like that in two dimensions. One is fit, right? Are they similar in demographic, firmographic? Are they similar size, vertical, industry, whatever the case may be? Similar title. And then secondly, do they have similar pains? And that is really the most important thing. If you think about it, buyers buy with their emotion. They're going to hear a story and they go like, oh my God, I have that problem, right? And if that story is on that company's website, they probably can help me with that. So it's much more about resonance with similar people with similar problems rather than the ROI. And then it's counterintuitive, right? You want to talk ROI, but that comes later. Sales will take care of that.
Right.
Marketing.
Because back what you said, it's about starting the conversation. It's about getting people interested in the problem, and which will lead ultimately to the solution.
The conversation, and then sales will take that further. It's almost a cliffhanger, right? Think about your favorite shows, like da 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 da. Here's this hero, and they're just like me, and they're in a happy place right now, but they used to have a really big problem. Cut scene. Right. Now I have to talk to you, the company, sales, right, to actually find out the rest of it. And that's actually a great tactic. So we're talking about messaging now, I guess. But that's a great tactic as content to put behind whatever campaign you might have. So
this whole concept of value with the customer reminds me of Glengarry Glen Ross. And there's this, for anybody that's seen the movie, if you haven't, it's a must-watch movie with Alec Baldwin about sales, and it's this high-pressure boiler room sales, and it's all about the product that they're trying to move. In this case, it's real estate. But what's great, it's a misconception because it's not really how you sell. You sell against and you market against, in this conversation, against the problem that people are having. And what I really like about that is it demystifies this whole kind of marketing and sales process, because you can really focus on the problem. You don't have to come up with this magic wand to try and club someone over the head with why they ought to buy your solution, because you're focusing on their problem. And people want to have conversations about the problems that they're having in business and how to do better. And that fundamental focus on problem really, I think, leads to value, which is a much broader topic, but that value ultimately then leads to sales and expansion and happy customers and a robust business. I want to go back though to the opportunities. There's we talked about mature markets and new markets. There's two, I think, important distinctions too in marketing about inbound versus outbound, and we really haven't touched on that. And I'm sure you field a lot of questions about that. Hey, should I run an inbound strategy or an outbound strategy? If I'm just getting going, what advice would you have? Maybe for we talk about what is inbound, what is outbound, and then how do you think about which strategy makes sense against what kinds of opportunities? Yeah. So let's put it back into context of your Glengarry Glen Ross story. Right. It's a mouthful.
It's all about value, right? Which I agree with. At the end of the day, if you're watching this and you're in marketing, let's demystify sales indeed, right? So sales is definitely not pushing products, right? Sales is about diagnosing a problem that a customer might have. Right. And you do that by asking questions, typically, and then telling stories about other customers that you've solved this problem for, full stop. And this is really helpful for marketing as well, right? So in the end of the day, I'm trying to figure out or find a group of people with a problem, and I'm trying to tell them stories about other customers, period, right? That's all of marketing. Now, inbound, interesting. So inbound means people are coming to your website and sort of self-selecting. They might be clicking on some things you've published there, and they come to you. They're knocking on your door, as you will, right? So what you know now about these people is they probably have a problem, right? Because they come to you, they're searching. So they have a problem, but you don't know necessarily if you can solve that problem, if they are a good fit, as you will, right? So maybe these people are, I don't know, using Google Analytics, and you don't have an integration with Google Analytics, right? So that would be a bad fit customer.
Right.
So in that scenario, it's useful to distinguish. Inbound means, as marketing, I'm bringing people to my Met site who have a problem, and now it's sales' job to filter out people that are a good fit for me or not. With outbound, it's almost the other way around. With outbound, I create a list of people that I know are a good fit, and
like a target
list,
profile, yeah.
Right. So maybe anybody who's not using Google Analytics, if I don't integrate with that.
Right.
And now I'm going to try and figure out if those people have a need or a problem, right? And I'm doing that by, again, proactively reaching out to them, which could be a combination of sales and marketing. So marketing could be, there's a lot of targeted strategies now at scale, right? I can, on LinkedIn, advertise or push content to a named list of companies and people, right? So pre-selected target account list. I can also ask sales to help, right? I think, especially if you're early stage, leveraging sales development reps, sort of the telesales from yesteryear, to actually pick up the phone and just call this list is not a bad strategy. It's not super scalable, it's rather expensive. But if you're early, it's probably the fastest way to try and start conversations.
Right. Yeah, because when you're early, you should be doing things that don't scale. You should be taking advantage of all these kind of hacks to learn faster. So yeah, I almost think at the beginning, you have to be doing outbound. It'd be crazy to start with a complete inbound strategy at the beginning because you don't even know what you're trying to target, right? You haven't had the conversation.
Right, and your risk is that you spend $1 million in a whole content strategy, only to find out, oops, I was targeting the wrong set of customers with the wrong message, whatever it is. So why not do something that doesn't scale, put people on the phone and learn, right? We talked about, it's about finding those things that work and then scaling them. Not doing 100 things, but doing the 3 things that really work. But how you find that out is through trial and error and actually leveraging sales development, outbound, phone calls, is a great way to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other interesting thing about an inbound strategy, it takes time for those, for those strategies to start delivering results, right? I mean, you implement, an SEO strategy, and how long typically, rule of thumb?
6 months.
6 months. I mean, that's a long time. That's an eternity in a startup, right? So you almost have to be doing some outbound work simultaneously. But I think, to your point, as you start to scale, the nice thing about the inbound is it scales much more efficiently.
Much lower cost to lead, right? So think of outbound, very quick, to learn and get to some pipeline, but high sort of cost per opportunity, as opposed to inbound, which takes much longer to get going, but much lower cost per opportunity.
And I also think the value of inbound too is that if you can create a message that can resonate, whether it's in a display ad, whether it's in content that you put out there, it really forces you to distill the problem and really get at it, which ultimately serves to be valuable for the whole company, including any outbound strategy. So it all sort of begins to work kind of in concert. The inbound then gives some air cover. It all starts to kind of work as you get bigger. Wow, this has been an awesome conversation about really how do you get leads. Really trying to focus more on the opportunity, not just the lead.
Yeah. So in summary, I guess what I'd recommend people do, figure out what works and double down. Don't try and peanut butter yourself across 100 things. Figure out what works for your company, depending on if you're mature or if you're
in a mature market
or a new market.
New market, right.
Early on, leverage outbound while building your inbound strategy. Leverage your customers to tell your story.
Right, really to have the customers tell the problem and not focus on the solution yet. Because it's really about getting that conversation started initially.
That's right.
Super. All right.
Good luck to you all.
Thank you. Please subscribe and hit the like button and leave any other comments or suggestions for future videos. Thanks.